Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Well, I know the VIP side works. We already had a bit of pregame going on there. On some crypto, taking a look at some different cryptos and kind of analyzing what's going on. So, let's see. Looks like everything's working correctly. Good. Welcome. Hopefully everyone was able to rest up, get ready for the day ahead, all that fun stuff. Good morning. How's it going? Good morning, SSFTG family. I hope you've all had a chance to rest up and get ready for the day ahead. I can't do Bob Ross. I love the dude, but I can't. I don't have enough fro. It's just not in my body. It's not in my soul. As per the usual, make sure to read through the morning prep PDF on the right side of the screen. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note for you all as well before we jump in today. If you're watching on the YouTube side of things, the stream does have between like a 5 and 30 second delay, which will, of course, definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at any given moment. Also, just want to take a second, like we do every day, to thank all of our new members, subscribers, Academy students, VIPs, and everyone in between. Thank you all so much for the support. I'm super excited to have you all on board. Welcome to the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, you have several different options to check out if you're looking to further your trading education and career. The easiest way to start out is just to join as a member on YouTube. It gets you in the chat room and a bit more behind the scenes on what's going on. Or, if you want more information on how we do everything on our trading approach with over 19 hours of video course material and a lot more, swing over to the main page at ssftg.com. So, whether you're here for the very first time or you're one of the VIP vets over on the dedicated stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside of me today, analyzing these crazy markets of ours, more on the crypto side as far as crazy. But let's take a look at some charts, take a look at some news, see what's going on for today. I use the Fibonacci tool personally, so when I'm setting up my L1, L2s, I find it way easier. The question was, how do I set up my levels for the L1s, L2s, and all of that? I use the Fib tool just because it's the easiest one and it's already drawing percentages. So all you have to do is just adjust the properties of the drawing. As an example, if you were to go into like drawing F8, double click on it, and then go into the price levels, you would add all of them inside of there. And you can add as many levels as you want. That's the cool thing about NinjaTrader 8. You can go crazy. You can add a lot of levels. There's no cap. So, keep that, with a grain of salt. Maybe don't go nuts. But you put all the levels inside there, and then after you've done that, go to the templates down here and save it as your default. That way, when you draw with it, it's that way every single time. It'll save you the hassle. Anyway, if you need more help, just let me know, and we can go over it in training a little bit later, and then we'll go a bit more step by step, more in the VIP side of things, though, or the extended session. Yeah, no problem. Also, don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you this morning on the Major 7. NASDAQ, S&P, Gold, Crude, Euro, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. It's a race every time, and geez, Bitcoin and Ethereum are definitely showing that race, down 13%, 14%, getting whacked off the top. Jeez. As far as the news calendar is concerned, we don't have a ton going on. Remember, Monday was a holiday, so everything shifted over. Yes, today's Wednesday, but that doesn't mean that we have inventories. That means that we had all of our Tuesday news shifted over to today, so today is API day instead. 10 o'clock has the JOLTS job openings for July. That means that we don't have any news before then. So as far as the news is concerned, 10 o'clock JOLTS, the forecast is 10 million, and that's really about it. We've got the API a little bit later in the afternoon at 16:30, and that'll give us an idea as to what to expect for the inventories tomorrow. Outside of that, though, that's really about it. Pretty calm waters here. Out of the way. Take a look on the S&P. Starting off and finally, right, getting a little bit of a dip. The market's finally pulling back a little bit and showing that, hey, we might actually be able to find a zone of volume. Holy cow. I don't know what that is anymore these days. The overall pullback, though, whenever I see this strong of a rally to the upside, right, when the market's just going straight up, and then it starts chopping sideways, starts trapping above the highs, double tops, and begins pulling back, my first thought process is that the market is going to try to get back to a left behind POC or something that was previously trapped. So going from the bottom to the top, we don't have that. The POC is up here at the top. That's at 1527. So if shorts were short, they sold enough to get their average up at the highs and potentially even exit. So this next drive down, then, we have to assume is going to be a valid attempt from the sellers. It's going to be very important if this valid attempt fails as well. But if we're looking at the overall volume structure, the market's still staying below 45.27, and that would suggest that we're not necessarily done going down. Or at the very least, if the bulls are going to take over, they've got to break out of some of this structure. They've got to show us that the market doesn't have what it takes, and that would really be nice to get them back above 45.27 as proof. As far as a structure is concerned, we've got the lowest point off of an L4, barely. Usually after an L4, the next pullback is going to be an L1. It took them a century and a half, but they did get the L1. After the L1 rotated back up, didn't get anything for a very long time. This didn't actually hit there. So that was a miss. That was not an L1. It missed it by a little bit, but for lack of anything else, I guess we'll call it one. Then we get this larger pullback, and you'll notice where we're bouncing off of. So it's not really a coincidence here that the bulls are trying to pick this up, because this is the spot where aggressive continuation trend buyers are going to be buying. Now, the big thing here is that they've got to break back above and prove that they've got enough to shut the sellers down. That hasn't been seen yet, so we'll have to give them a little bit more time. Nice potential V bottom, though. Over on gold, market is climbing higher, but again, a nice dive to the downside. Very small congestive phasing going on, suggesting that this might be a small-term flag before a breakout further. And usually those breakouts are going to be measurements of the... what the heck? Of the flagpole. I don't even know what that was. I'm going to cut the flagpole a little bit down, though, and just go off of the nearer pulse. And that still gives downside objectives towards, like, 1780s. Right back down to the previous structure area. And if we go across here from the lows to the top, as far as volume is concerned, we've got the POC, which is resting right inside that area as well. So this whole zone down here, if the market can kind of migrate its way lower, that's going to be the spot of interest. Let's get this all the way to the end and see if anything's changed. They did get the POC to shift up, but outside of that, this is the hot spot right there. And actually, we can go a little bit further down. You don't want it to be too big, though. Then it gets annoying. It should be all right. That'd be the zone of interest for the bulls now. Gonna have to wait to see him get down there, though. As far as crude is concerned, you'll notice I didn't get a single one of those setups that we were looking at yesterday. Not a single one of them came back to fill. We've got crude oil, which is really... strangely, sort of looking like the S&P and the NASDAQ. It looks really close from this perspective. Nice, strong rally to the upside, good continuation. We're starting to go a bit sideways. We know inside here that there was a POC shift right about there. The market tried, it failed, rotated up, but then the bulls failed to launch, and now we're trying to get them going. Right? This is sort of their last-ditch effort. We'll get that POC on there just so we can see it and make sure that we've got the exact price, but let's go across up here. Oh, that's right. Bugged data. There we go. 67.60. So the market gets a dive down. They get the POC test. We rotate back up to a new high. The bulls failed to get the launch the first time. We're pulling back. All they did, really, was just pull back to the exact same price. And higher, low, breakout move to the upside. So, I mean, the bulls are demonstrating some pretty good strength here. We can carry this order flow up to a new high for an impulse. And that gives us a bit more of a perspective that the bulls may have almost lost it, right? If this one right there would have broken a new low, that might have been a tipping point. They couldn't do it, though, and then it turned into higher low, really aggressive higher lows. The one thing this feels like this is missing is a nice rotation back down to a zone of interest. Right? So getting a nice rotation back to 68.75 would be really fitting. And from a risk perspective, that also allows not really a whole lot of risk. I mean, you're looking for a push underneath the previous low. At the most, underneath the next major swing. You wouldn't be able to fit a 3-to-1 then. Not even a 2-to-1. That kind of sucks. Well, the only thing that would fit there would be a scalp. That's a bit of a bummer. So I think you have to utilize a smaller risk, lower probability, but much higher reward. Because this fits like, yeah, it fits a 4-to-1 into the high. Really nice. So we'll have to see how they want to play ball, but let me get this all the way further forward here. That's a great start for a reversal. Breaking back above that POC. Goodbye. I have a... What song has that in the breakdown? I'm not going to play that on here because half the people will leave, but... that's one right before the breakdown hits. It does that old AOL goodbye. It's really cool. Over on the euro, we've got again really nice continuation of the upside. The bulls are looking for a reason to, well, become a buyer. The big thing that we've been kind of seeing though is that it's not necessarily fitting a channel anymore. We're kind of more so fitting a megaphone. It's a really wonky looking megaphone, and it's certainly not a very obvious one. But that does give us a perspective as to why this may not be fitting down here. Because realistically, the megaphone may be based off of something that's down here. And that support just simply hasn't hit yet. That allows a lot of open ground down to, man, like the 1.17800s if this really wants to start falling apart. And the reason why I'm looking so much further down is because we've got a serious problem here from the bulls. We've got that attempted launch above the highs and a nice little attempt to pull back. And the bulls had their shot, right? And that didn't work. Okay, well, maybe they're looking for a bit more value down here. Small little breakout we were talking about, getting a lift. Nope. Now we're breaking lower again. Oof. That's too many things. That's too many problems. This is when things start going like this and really start reaching out. So looking out here for a megaphone there, although it looks like it's really far away, might actually be kind of conservative. The next megaphone on a really catastrophic blow off would be something like this, which would be nuts. But then you're talking, wow, it's like it's only halfway there. Sheesh. We'll keep it there just in case. But now, as far as the cycle is concerned, because this is really the first time the market has pulled back, if we're looking at it from a continuation phase, we've got a low. I mean, they really didn't have any major pullbacks, but I guess the first big pullback that they had was an L2, rolled up into a new high with another L2. So buyers are immediately thinking, where's the next L2? Give me the next one. The next pullback was an L1. It's like, well, you don't get it. Sorry. The market pulls back again. L1 again. Ah, crap. Okay, I guess the L2s aren't going to fly. All right, let's look for the L1s. Then the market doesn't pull back and it doesn't give a single person an L1 until it's too late and it becomes a trap. Very indicative of an overextensive move. You can feel how it forced people to chase. They're like, yes, we've got the L2. Yes, we've got the L2. Let's get the next one. Crap, it was an L1. All right, well, maybe we'll get the L2 next time. That's an L1. Like, ah, crap, okay, now we've got to find the L1 again? And then it doesn't even hit the L1 and keeps breaking out above the highs. It's forcing people to chase. You can feel them in a rush. And when that rush starts breaking out, that's when things start going south really quickly. And these parabolic drops, that makes a lot of sense. And look where these line up. Right, by the time the market gets down there, this L3 would be right at the base of this wedge. And if it really wants to fall apart, an L5 down at the bottom. It fits. You know, I mean, it's crazy. I would rather see the L3 for the bulls at least, but we got to be mindful of it. Over on Bitcoin, after getting absolutely obliterated on the top, they dropped off the highs, and yesterday was at the 52,000 mark. And remember, we were talking at how when they have a settlement way up at the top, it always concerns me. Remember we were talking about that yesterday morning? Like, man, every time we open up and the close or the settlement is at the top and the market's way far away, it never ends well. It's either a V bottom or it just gets obliterated. We were talking about, I believe, on the NASDAQ. But the same goes here, right? Settlement's way up in the stratosphere, and man, that thing got slammed. The real big question that we have to ask, and I can't do it on here, otherwise it's going to crash my charts. But the real big question to ask here is, is this going to be it, or is there more? And we were talking about this a lot more on the VIP pregame. We were in, I don't know, about 10 minutes early or so, and going over Bitcoin and how things look. I'm not necessarily, this might be the short-term low, but this could be a rocky road ahead of us. We'll see. Where we are now is a nice zone of support. If the bulls can hold it up, this could be a nice launching pad. I mean, either way, buyers are definitely going to be BTFDing into this. Ethereum is probably one of the most obvious swing low traps that I've seen in a while. They got that dip down to 3,000. Now, let's rewind a minute, right? Let's rewind, what, 2 years? 3 years? Whenever Bitcoin was pulling back after it had that big rally up to, what was it, like 7,000 or 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, started going crazy. Big dive back, and it pulled all the way back down to 3,000, real close. And what was the one thing that we said then? That might be the last time we see 3,000. And we've been talking about similarities between Ethereum and Bitcoin of before, right? And how they are operating in very similar structure. Now, granted, this didn't drop off of 7,000 all the way down to 3,000, and I'm not necessarily convinced that this is the last time we're going to see 3,000. But these big wicks on the bottom on a market like Ethereum that has as much to offer, knowing how quickly traders respond to flash crashes these days, this might be the short-term bottom, definitely. And short-term bottom means another 20, 30, 40% to the upside is possible. And Ethereum, remember, is already broken to all-time highs, so they're in new territory. They're fresh. This could be the last time we see 3,000 or somewhere around here. But at the same time, man, that vindictive side of me, man, I can't shake it. I would love to see a good little trap underneath to actually get 3,000. That's the one thing it's missing, is a physical test. We'll see what they can do with it. To me, if they really wanted to pull back to a big zone of interest, would be the launching pad. If they crack through 3,000, would be the big launching pad underneath that, which was, what was that, 700s, 800s? Talk about catastrophic. But then you're talking the bigger, historical pullback territory. Give me 1 second here. My cat's trying to be a pain. Man, it's like he knows. Cats, I tell you. Anyway, looking at the Nasdaq and seeing what's going on. First off, on the daily, the big thing with the daily, the L1 is still pretty far down there. We got another 160 points to go. It's not terrible, but that L1 is going to be the big zone of interest we've been waiting for forever. Not necessarily sure that it's going to make it down there, but that's the area of interest. At the moment, we've got a lot of support coming up, and you can see this shelf that's being built here, right? There's very, very, very obvious support that is holding the market up here. How's it going, Steven? Welcome, welcome. Everybody else, welcome. So with this amount of support that's coming in here, that's going to be a definitive line in the sand. Like, if the market breaks through this, then obviously the next spot is going to be the L1, and that area is at around 15,600. So if it loses the 600s, then realistically it's a 100-point free fall to the next zone of support. And that next zone of support, how much is there really? It's the top of the L1, it's the base of the doji, but if that doesn't hold, then we're starting to look at the L2, and then we're getting back into the previous structure, back to 15,000s, and now we're talking some serious corrections. So buyers really need to hold this up high. They need to keep this thing going. Looking at it from the 15-minute perspective and kind of figuring out what they want to do from here, we're still going sideways. There's not really been much of a change. From an ABCD perspective, I guess, Thank you, alarm clock. Oh, jeez. Let me try that again. From the top. How big was that? A 1-to-1 move? That wasn't a 1-to-1 move. Okay, so that's a good thing. Then we can go up here and look for a 1-to-1 move, which would be right there. Look where that lands. Holy moly. Okay, so hang on one second. Sure, duplicate that one to a new window, but don't be dumb. No instrument link. That's a monstrous zone of interest. And why is it on 4x on the NQ? And that's going to be at 544. All right, 544. Mm. 09 half. 09, sure. Easy enough. And the reason I like this should be fairly obvious, but the risk reward is absolutely bonkers. Yeah. 3-to-1 back to the highs. Not even to the highs. I mean, I don't think it fits a 5-to-1. I don't think it fits a 5-to-1. Then I'm also going to utilize this area for an internal bounce. But for a risk offset. And if it wants to be crappy, then I'll let it be crappy. Okay. So the NASDAQ from a swing perspective is very, very interesting. Super, super interesting. Hang on a second, just so that I don't lose track of it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so as far as the micro NASDAQ goes, if we can get down in this zone, this will also allow me a chance to show two different approaches. So the just blindfolded sort of mentality of just taking I know that my probability is bad, but I have a chance to get a 3-to-1, potentially 4-to-1, maybe more, and offset my risk. Or there's the other way, which is allow the market to get down into the zone and then zoom in to a faster time frame and locate that area of support. Either way, the one thing that is very, very obvious with the current market structure is that we are dealing with some pretty nasty sideways. Going from the bottom to... yeah, that was the impulse high right there. And I mean, look at this, right? So we've got this major zone of interest down here, which could potentially shift the POC up. And that's why I like this area, because if this zone does shift the POC to the upside, that could be a launching pad for another really strong rally. Remember, September, go crazy, whatever. But as far as everything is going here, if that fails, and if the bulls do not hold here, I do not want to be holding the bag, because this could potentially drop all the way down to this 15,360s, 395s in that area. I mean, big pullback time. if it wants to dip a little bit further. And remember, that lines up a lot better structurally with the previous wave 4. And that's what you would expect out of a correction. So as far as a corrective phase pulling back inside wave 4 and that lining up with an L2 and the POC and everything else, you can see why, if the buyers don't hold here, and why I want to offset my risk a little bit, I'm not willing to hold on. It's not worth it, because this thing could go dumping all the way down. So, got the big zone of support. We'll see what they want to do with it. How's it going, Ace? Good morning, good morning. All right, we've got the open around the corner, 4 minutes. What's up? How's it going, Bram? Right around the corner. 928 as well, don't forget. We've got, man, here, this is the way that I'm looking at this, okay? This is how my mind is seeing today playing out. I'm seeing today playing out as though it is going to be the wick on a daily candle. Okay, and what I mean by that is that you've got the open, let's just use this midnight open, whatever. You've got the daily open from settlement, which looks to be about here. You've got this gigantic dive to the downside. They're back to the opening price. They're hovering around, and then they break higher. So what does that look like by the time the candle closes, right? Well, if we crunch this together and move this down a little bit, this is how I would like to see today roll if the bulls are going to take it, okay? It would be something along the lines of settlements with a wick would be down there. And the close, I don't really care where the close is. I would like to see it somewhere, you know, up here, maybe. And, you know, maybe a little bit of wick on top. Now, what does that look like internally? Well, we can take this price action, and that might go up and go break out through the highs and roll off the top and kind of settle at the end of the day. So that's one potential outcome for today. That's how the bulls really want today to stick. Now, alternatively, this could also be one of these bear days that have a very little piggy tail, and it closes at the bottom. Could also go nowhere. We've just got a big old doji, which at least saves people, you know. But what I'm getting at is today has the potential to be a launching pad for either direction, which means that we've got to be cognizant of that. We've got to be open-ended. Are we rolling over soon? As far as the volume is concerned, the 921 contract is trading 143,000 contracts. The 12 is trading 2,000. Not for a bit. Probably technically next week Friday is the third Friday though, huh? So, I mean, it's going to have to roll over next week. I mean, maybe there's some huge shift in volume by the end of this week, but I doubt it. It'll probably shift next week. Looking at it from this perspective, we have wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and they're looking for a wave 5 completion to the upside. They have not been able to maintain structure above 69.25, which was the impulse POC. Yeah, quad witching next week too. Oh boy. It should be fun. Good old quad witching. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For those of you who are unfamiliar, quad witching is when all four of the asset classes are expiring. You can do a Google search. It'll give you all the info you need on it if you want to dig a little bit deeper than that. The big thing that you really need to understand about quad witching is that because so many things are expiring and so many things are falling apart, we've got the open, by the way. You've got man, hang on a second. Bad timing. We're at the open. You've got a lot of things that are expiring, which is causing an insane amount of volatility, which means that it's an incredibly difficult week, is what I'm trying to get at, okay? Short story. We've got the open. You've got the market, which is kind of migrating around the POC, but again, failing. Yeah, Elliott Wave is some crazy stuff, isn't it? Once you understand it, it's super simplistic, but there's so much to it. It's crazy. Big rotation to the downside, now making a new low, which means that this is over here. From a structure perspective, we've got an L5. This is an L2. So the bulls are in the L2 zone of interest to try to pick this up off of the L5 bottom. Got to gain a little bit of proof here. They haven't even gotten a higher low, like... Some buyers may be stacking up in the 52s. This is kind of in the median price between the L2. Can the bulls show up to the party? They haven't technically broken down yet. Oh, they're getting close. Ooh, man. Okay. Bulls are fist fighting over this L2. They almost lost the L2. Starting to gain some ground. Looking for this pullback to be an exit for traders on the earlier zone, taking this flush as a way to get out. That also means that our risk doesn't have to be very big. Underneath the previous lows. Alright, I'll take the exit. See if they can get a higher low or something going. Technically, they haven't hit the L3 yet, so it's still a valid L2. Jeez. But as far as what I was trying to achieve, I was looking for this to stick for about a 3-to-1 or a 2-to-1 inside of the top. And that did not fit. So, fair enough. Market finally breaking down to an L3, which is going to be a disappointing response. A lot of traders, well, that's not what I wanted to delete. A lot of traders are going to be looking for this to, well, not do this. This is 3 lower highs, 4 lower highs. There's a lot of problems here. Which is why I like that spot for a last ditch. It's worth the risk. But at the same time, if it can't go, it's not worth holding on to. So noting the way that things are moving here, we've got a bear L5, which cycled off of an L4, kind of disappointing on that L4. But with another breakdown, L4 should see an L1. They did. That was that gross back and forth. After the L1, they got an L3, and now an aggressive breakdown in structure looking for a continuation. And arguably, that L3 breakdown in structure was right where I was exiting for the shorts to take back over again. Yikes. Let's see if we can get some better pricing. So shorts looking for the continuation to the downside. Couldn't pull back far enough. All right. Now, if we look at the overall structure from this breakaway, we have an L3 rotation into an L1 into another L1. So the overall structuring is saying that we should see another L1 continuation. But that also means that we shouldn't break into... Well, really, this is either going to hold the bottom side of the L1 or it's not going to hold. That's about the only thing that it's going to do here, so... Looking for slightly wider targets. First target off at the 2-to-1. See if they can get a breakdown below the lows. And realistically, if they break down from here, a wider objective that would make more sense would be 605 quarter. I'm willing to hold on to it with my open risk if my target's down there. That bull bar could be looking to pulse break-evens. If this is a break-even rejection, it should jump back down pretty quickly. And if it's not, then the trade ends up being a 1-to-1. Took a 2-to-1, give back 1, etc. And if we can get the drive down, then we get a 5-to-1. So I'm okay with that. Now, from a structure perspective as well, noting that we do have this L1, L1, L1 structure continuing, and they did fill some of their objectives back down to the lows. They didn't make a new low, which is a little bit disappointing, but taken out on the stop on the next part there. I mean, realistically, this does stand a chance to just look for an L1, 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 and then it just pops into an L2. It's the exact same thing. That would be the zone to the downside. This one's a little bit better in terms of reward versus risk, though, because you've got a 3-to-1 that fits inside the lows and potentially even further. As far as the S&P is concerned, they've got a jumbotron bull bar back to the upside. Approaching it like this increases the probability, but we'd have to go for a 2-to-1. Still fits. See if they can get up there. Looking across the board here, we've got, well, gold, which is starting its descent to the downside. That's about it, man. There's not really anything else happening, huh? Calm and quiet. Man, you wouldn't know it by looking outside. Today it looks absolutely beautiful outside. Yesterday we had some wicked storms rolling through here. There were like tornado warnings. Kids like in school, like with, you know, doing tornado drills and stuff. Like crazy weather yesterday. Some places they were saying softball size hail. We didn't see that here, thank God. But like our power went out and like that's just nutso. And then today you look outside and it's gorgeous. It's always the case, isn't it? Unless it's in the middle of the like a tornado, then it's just the eye of the storm, and you better hold on to something. 10 o'clock around the corner. Sellers are, although in an incredibly vindictive way, trying to hold on to these L1s. Sloppy start so far on the S&P, especially. Down, up, down, back and forth. Who knows? Looking at this from a POC perspective, the Nasdaq's 55 quarter is the first 5. And after that first 5, we've now downshifted to 626.50. The first 5 POC, did I do that right? Hang on. Yeah, okay. So the first 5 POC on the S&P, 45.10. Still 45.10. Seems like sellers are winning the short-term fight, depending on how they get going here. Yeah, it's becoming more likely that we break below the lows now. Might not get that deeper pullback yet, unless the bulls really show up to the party, but I'm not so convinced yet. Okay. That's a valid attempt from the bulls, but if that fails, that's going to be a real big problem. Then we've likely got ourselves a whole string of lower highs and a potential breakdown point. Bulls are trying. Ugh. He says as they get smacked in the face. Jeez. So aggressive. That pulse down right there is either going to be a big trap for shorts or longs. It looks like the shorts are the ones that got the bait. So this is where we'll probably, if they're going to get the deeper L2 pullback, where they're going to get that job done if they can get above some of these stops. There they go. A little more. Zone of interest is going to be at the 636s. I'm opting to take it with a wider, a slightly wider stop. Increases the probability, but obviously decreases the profitability by a little bit to a 2-to-1 instead of a 3-to-1. Let's see if I can grab one extra one for a risk offset on a quicker target. Nice little zone of interest for the sellers to pressure back a bit. All right, now we're starting to wind it out a little bit. POC still down at the bottom. The 5-to-1 from actual risk would put it at 616 quarter. So the first objective is going to be a 2-to-1. The second objective is a 3-to-1. The final objective is a 5-to-1 back to the lows. I'm going to utilize that as my offset and risk. Didn't get it as far as down as I wanted it to, but that's fine. The sellers seem like they're having some difficulty, and I would rather reduce my risk. I wanted that pulse down to go further, but oh well. Downside objectives, let's see. 2-to-1 and 3-to-1. That wider objective's right down there. I'm going to modify a bit further and do a 3-to-1 actual and 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 larger. That fits a bit better. Good continuation pulse to the downside. Wow, really? All right, I have to jump out there. It's absolute BS, NASDAQ. You rotten pecker. Still looking for the final objective down there. As far as the initial target that I scalped out of was that big, so that's how much risk I'm willing to give it. That last vindictive little shizy BS that happened there, I really need to see this go down sooner than later now. I'm also kind of curious to see what happens down here, because a lot of traders who were looking for their objectives might not have been filled, myself included. I jumped out a little more aggressively because I'm not about to give back a trade, but if we start pushing down here and seeing bullishness stepping back up, that may be a sign that it just makes more sense to early exit there around this low instead of trying to go for this more aggressive, greedy target. Good continuation to the downside. Weak bull bars so far. Bears still demonstrating strength. Nice weak bull bar, he says. Tell you what, though, if the bears maintain this pressure, we've got ourselves a possibility of an avalanche wedge, and that blow-off target fits perfect. The wick on the ES is a statement. Does that mean the buyers took their targets and the price is staying below the POC? The sellers are coming in. That's the thing. I mean, if you look at the POC, it's staying under all of them, right? Like, no remorse. So the fact that it hasn't even been able to close above it is huge. Now, this giant wick rejection off of settlement and a push back down, I would agree. That's a big statement. And what will be a bigger statement is how the market follows through. Does it continue to pulse lower? Does it collapse? Does it fall apart, etc.? Because remember where we are, right? From this perspective, on the bigger side of things, there's a lot of room to the downside if this wants to start falling apart. I'm actually kind of curious. We've got the lows down here at around the 15, 16s, 15s, etc. But the 15,620s are the POC of this move from the bottom. And now we're holding underneath it. I don't see a reason to exit. But I'm going to be 100%. I don't see a reason to exit a short right now. Not the way that this is setting up. At least not yet, not with this context. Now I'm watching this kind of retest of the wedge down here. We've got the wedge which has widened out a little bit. So from the bigger perspective, those downside objectives are going to be, you know, again, the 550s. I mean, they've just got to break the low. That's the thing. Like, they're not getting down here to these other objectives. They're having a little bit of difficulty here. Yeah, my initial entry for the trade and one of the contracts in and of its entirety was designed, like I said, for a risk reduction. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? That first trade, effectively where my stop is, was the size of my first trade. So if it ends up being a loser, I only give back the first portion of the trade and I don't give back the rest. You try to keep it in your pocket, if you will, right? But right now, the context is dictating that I don't have a reason to exit shorts. If they want to pop higher and disprove it on these higher lows, that's fine. But they're going to have to prove it. Bottom weighted POC from 620s if you're going all the way from the bottom. But if you just go from the bottom to top, that's a retest at the 620. And now they're cycling off of the 630s from the top down, which is why I'm still short. We're just kind of ping-ponging between the two. I don't see the bulls winning this fight. Now, if we were further down, yeah, different story, right? Then they've got something to work with, but now I'm watching this area here. We've got to push through this. There's a lot of volume coming in. We've got 10 o'clock right around the corner, 10 o'clock news as well. Starting to break down further. Pushing down towards the 5-to-1 objective. Breaking through the 5-to-1 objective. This is kind of what we were talking about. Now I want to see it slide. Nope, they're not sliding. I'm out. Give me my 5-to-1. No, thank you. I gave it a shot. I tried. Peace. I'll take that 5-to-1. Yeah. Beautiful move to the downside, but man, the way that they did it, such a vindictive, just... We do have news around the corner as well. Now, if you have, for me, that's all the contracts I had. Multiple contracts. The first couple that I added on there were for pure risk reduction. A lot of traders, totally honest, they're probably not going to want to really hold on to much more than break-evens going into news, right? See what happens if it bounces up in the news and maybe break-evens and then rejects back down to a new low. But, I mean, really, it's just not worth the risk. And you can see everybody's bailing. Everybody knows, like, why hold the risk? 2 minutes to news? Big time. That wasn't worth holding on to. It's like, nope. No thanks. Especially not sitting on top of a 5-to-1. When you get a bounce off of a 5-to-1, it usually doesn't come back very, very soon. 5-to-1s are big targets, especially on the algo side of things. They respond very aggressively at 5-to-1s. Man, they had such a good shot, too. Could you imagine if they had just a bit more juice to poke through these lows? That could have been absolutely insane. Which is why I opened the risk up and very quickly shut the door when it told me to, but... see what the news does. We got 45 seconds. We are also going into 10 o'clock, top of the hour. Feel free to get those questions in. We'll get those covered for you, and then we'll move into the extended session. Great movement so far. 10 o'clock hits. We're now breaking above the POC. Gold's getting close. I feel like nothing's moving. Is it just me? Like, man, like gold moves. I feel like these just haven't moved at all. I mean, we know the Nasdaq's moving. Crazy slow. Well, either way, feel free to get those last questions in, and then we'll get going from there. Fantastic way to end the morning, that's for sure. Do you think there'll be another leg down in crypto, or is this where sellers are getting out at break even? I mean, realistically, hang on a second. Let me get old trading view over here. Okay. As far as trading view, or as far as Bitcoin is concerned, sorry, we've got the really strong, again, continuation to the upside in this wedge breakout total failure. The only thing that I could really see if there isn't going to be a leg down, because obviously this POC is hanging out right there like, yes, please. Buyers will be looking for that to be a supportive zone of interest. And, you know, again, like we've been talking about, historically speaking, the market does make its rally up, you know, a decent distance before finding some resistance. And then after that resistance, you've got like a 70% drop from there. So my concern is that these bears follow through, because this is only 19%. I say only 19%. People just watch 20% of their crypto portfolio evaporate overnight. But if you look at a 70% drop and you look at where it puts us right back to where we've been talking about for ages. Even like the other smaller pullback was 53%. 53% puts us right in striking distance of 20s. So, I mean, it's all right back towards that 20,000 mark. So, everything is saying that the bulls are in current control of the short term, okay? If we go all the way back up to the highs, we can see that the short-term point of interest has reversed in the bulls very obviously for quite a while now, have been long from around the 35,000 area. Now, from that perspective, it's obviously gone up pretty far from there, but you know, looking back from an impulse side of things, the low point was actually right here. The POC's in the same spot. It's still down here. It doesn't really change anything. The only thing that would really give us any type of difference is if we go back, and the hard part here is, where do we start, right? Like, what do we start at, the low of 3,000 way back there? I mean, I guess, you know, for lack of anything else, that's all we have to work with. So if we look at that from that low way down there all the way up to the high, that POC is still way back at 9,200. That makes this really complicated if it's going to start pulling back. But if we move this, come on, if we move this a little further forward, it's still down there. That means that the bulls haven't exited. So, I think bulls, long-term bulls, are still very much looking for incredibly high prices, and I think a lot of them have accumulated the majority of their positions sub 10,000. Although there is a large phase going on here in the 35,000s, I don't see this being the end of this descent move down. No. I think this is the beginning of potentially multiple legs to the downside, which could navigate us first to 20,000, and I say catastrophically, but, you know, probably more on a situation like Coinbase has a glitch or something and it happens over a millisecond, but it flushes down to like 10,000. But before that can happen, the sellers have to prove that they have control, and that simply isn't the case. So yeah, there is a doomsday scenario, and I'm sure every news outlet in the planet's reporting about it right now. But I think it's early to say that. You know, I think this bounces back up and probably gets back into the 50,000s, 51, 52,000s by tomorrow, maybe the day after. And then after that, start descending back down again. You know, we'll have to wait and see what happens, of course, but... Well, yeah, I mean, if you're listening to if you do the opposite of what news says, you'd be rich. Right, what was the one that I always joke about is Ripple with CNBC. CNBC, they were talking about Ripple, and they had this whole expose on how to buy a Ripple when it was $3 or whatever it was. Yeah, and then, like, what was it, like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, they had another expose on how to sell your Ripple when it was like $1.50. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So buy high, sell low. Oh, okay, got it. That's the CNBC way. I couldn't believe it. Unbelievable. So, I mean, there's multiple eye-opening situations like that, but that's always kind of the long-standing joke. So, I mean, yeah, there are doomsday scenarios. And yeah, this could get absolutely annihilated in terms of valuation. 60, 70, 75, maybe even 80% pullbacks off the highs. But that's normal, right? If you're getting into crypto and you're not expecting an 80% pullback, 70% pullback, you're nuts. That's the market. That's what it does. So it's realistic to expect, you know? And I think there's this euphoric type mentality that comes in when you've got these big pulses. Everybody tries to BTFD and they get that pop up. But if that pop up doesn't follow through, then everybody starts jumping ship and it cascades it all the way back down again. Next stop, though, would be like 36,000s. There's still a long way to go till down there. So the two-time winner claimed the VIP lucky. I like it. Thank you for being on the reminder. Yeah. We're all set on that side of things. But so the way that it worked out, it was a little bit awkward. So I may end up doing a drawing sooner than later anyway. I'm not really going to go into it too much, but there may be an extra drawing when we hit our next milestone. Instead of just doing one, I'll probably do two, just because this last one, with all the people like taking forever to claim and all that, it's been a bit of a mess on the backside. So yeah, we'll probably do two on the next one now that I've got a grip and on how it works and all that. Anyway, all right. Well, I don't think there's anything else. So let's switch over to the extended session, and then we'll roll in, see if we can find anything else going on. Potential for a nice little reversal going on here now with this break up. So let's get that side going. Enjoy the rest of the morning so far. If you've had a great one, and hopefully you've had a great one. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, or if you have a more detailed question, you can always shoot me an email, jhb@ssftg.com. For the rest of you who are hanging out in the extended session, just hang for a second and we will rotate over, all right? For those of you who are ducking out, have a great one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.